Hey everyone, this is Brett Favre, Green Bay Packers Super Bowl champion, and you're watching Packers Total Access Live, your daily source for Packers content. Go Pack Them.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on Packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. Joined alongside Tim in Green Bay. We got Emilio in Tennessee here to talk some Packers tonight, talk off-season. We're going to kind of get you primed up for the East-West Shrine game as well as the Senior Bowl. We got a couple of X's and O's things to talk about. We got a little bit of news that broke across the NFC North. All kinds of good stuff in the show today. I see the chat filling up. Appreciate y'all making us a part of your Friday evening here on this glorious January 24th. Tim, Emilio, how we doing, fellas? We doing good today?
Doing good, man.
Doing well, warming up a little bit, so I'll take it.
Yes, sir.
There was a couple of times this week, Tim, down here that I looked out and said, it almost looks like spring. But you walk outside and you go, dang, it's still cold. But you can feel it. The days are getting a little bit longer. Have you noticed that, Emilio?
Yeah,
Just a touch longer every day. So
it seemed like I was done at work at 5, no doubt. And now it's like, all right, I can push it to 6. We're getting there. Yeah.
A little more daylight, you know.
Yep.
Today, got outside. It was, 11 degrees. We'll take it, man. Heat wave coming in. We might hit 28 tomorrow. Oh, my goodness. Let's go.
Sounds like it. Tell you, man, whatever it takes, dude, whatever it takes. So let's do this, man. Let's jump over to Twitter first and hit on some of the topics from today. I wanted to play this video. This is a good friend of the show. His name is Coach Chris Haddad. He's in the Boston area, just outside of Boston, really closer to Foxborough, where the Patriots play. And he and his whole family, his dad, his brother, they've been coaches forever. They all obviously all played football. They've got this family legacy they're creating there at the high school level. And they were actually they won the USA Today Coaching Staff of the Year, at least one year, maybe multiple years. Just salt of the earth people, absolutely awesome. They've got a website called Victory Sports, okay, and it's VIQTORY. So Victory is spelled with an IQ in the middle. And it's just really, really cool content. If you guys get a chance, check out their website. Go follow him on Twitter. Their main Twitter handle is at VIQTORY Sports, or you can go to Coach Chris Haddad's as well.
Heard it from a fan right here.
He'll be linked up in there as well. But this is just a real quick talking about, you guys know, Tim, Emilio, when we're watching a game and you see, we always say we spot the defense communicating with each other, right? They'll make a call, right, and make a check. Most of the time you'll hear a word called. Like you remember back in the day, Aaron Rodgers saying, New York Bozo, New York Bozo. And he was obviously talking about, was it Cliff Christie? What was his name? Not Cliff Christie. What was his name?
Chris Christie, yeah.
Chris Christie. Yeah, he'd seen the governor up in the box.
Yeah, I remember all of them. We had Halle Berry. We had that for a while.
Right.
We had Yellow Wanda, all kinds of good code names. I love it.
So they talk here about how they do it on defense, and he's talking with a fellow coach at _coach_A, and they explain how they get creative with it and how they let the players at the high school level kind of take ownership of it. This is a really cool video, about 2 minutes long. It's definitely worth a watch. Let's hit it.
I think defense is getting knocked a little bit because anytime you hear a coach or a player yell a destructive word, thunder, fire, I don't know, it usually means some sort of blitz is coming, right? So it's like, how can you steer off of that, but still stay in the family of creating blitzes? And that's kind of where I want to leave with my next question for you. It's like, when you are creating systems, I know like some of the blitzes you have, you'll quarterback names, right? Mm-hmm. And creating these families or these buckets, as you mentioned earlier, is that what you recommend for like blitzes, coverages, to like create this family and this arc of a system? That way the familiarity when they're calling it throughout the game is they know exactly where to go to when you say that one word.
Yeah. And I think too, like if you have a high volume of calls, like being able to switch from it, like obviously calling like creepers and sims quarterbacks is a big Aranda thing. He kind of popularized that. But you can literally anything, cars, rappers, candy bars, towns, historical figures, right? Like it's really limitless of what you can do. But what it is it just comes down to like, hey, when you hear this term, we're running this on the front end, we're running this on the back end. One of the good things is like in the Georgia system, weapons mean fire zones, right? So if we had scissors, we got spear, we got, a stab or knife or whatever you want to call it, the kids know we're running fire zone coverage. I just need to know what that correlates with that. I think another good way of doing it is like word association or letters. If you're attacking the A gap, find something with an M or an A. If you're attacking the boundary, find something with a B. Field is an F. So to me, that's where you need to start. But again, because let's round back, because I said more times wasted on this is there's always one guy on staff that's like really good at that. Yeah. It's okay to let them do that.
Yeah. One thing that we've done at our school, which I love, is I'll designate like 3 kids, and they're our creative committee is what I always joke and call them. It's like take the 3 most creative kids that kind of think outside the box. It's like, hey, I want to create this fire zone pressure with this. How can we relate it? And then it's just a fun way to get those kids involved.
Oh, yeah. And they have ownership of like for real. Every time
it's such an important thing there to allow the players on a team to take ownership of stuff, right? And I think Aaron Rodgers said it forever, like the best teams in the NFL are player led, right? You don't have to, like I went to a Coach K seminar, got to sit and eat lunch with him and this and that. And we had an awesome time just studying his leadership. And one of the things he talked about is we don't make rules. The coaching staff doesn't make rules. Our leaders create standards, right? And they come up with what's important to them. Now, of course, it's going to get checked off by the coaches, but when you allow someone to take ownership of that, it means more to them. Right. It's kind of like the old story. I think it was in the Play Caller podcast where Kyle Shanahan allowed RG3 to pick one play. You guys remember that? It's the same exact mindset. So what's your all's thoughts on that? I don't care who goes first, but this is the type of stuff that they do over at Victory Sports, just taking you behind the scenes. And when he's talking about buckets, all those fire zones go into one bucket. And when they call out that weapon, that knife, that gun, that wrapper, whatever it is, right, that means, hey, fire zone's on, as opposed to like like an A-gap blitz, things like that. So what do you guys think about that?
I think it's great because if the players are taking ownership, it should, get rid of some of those communication issues right off the bat, right? If you're calling a code word, everyone hears the code word, everyone agreed on it, came up with it, they know what it means. There should be no second guessing, no miscues, nothing. You already know what the set is. I think that's great. And it's so huge because, it's player led and player defined, which means you're going to get player driven results. That's what you're looking for on the field. Coach can be screaming in the headset or screaming from the sidelines all he wants. We can be holding up the personnel cards and doing hand signals and all of that. But if the players have their own names and the coach is correlated to what they're calling, man, it's going to make communication a lot easier out there, I think, at all levels, not just in the pros, but any level of football, really.
Communication is key, and they're going to have fun with it. Like you said, in high school, you're calling that out. You're probably messing with your buddies in class, going in the hallway, calling out different fire zone blitzes, all that different stuff. But yeah, you know what you're doing. You know where you have to go, and then it gives you a couple options. If you're in a pinch, then you have maybe your green dot backer. If I don't even know if they have that now, but in high school, but you can call your plays out. You have a couple of things that you can fall back on. I mean, it's just like calling an audible in Madden. You only get 4 when you're out there in your play set. It's not like you can go through your whole playbook and get into something different. You got to have a couple, hammers that you can go to right away.
Definitely. Yep. It's huge, man. It's absolutely huge. We got a few people in the comments asking how the doctor went and this and that. We're good, guys. I appreciate y'all asking. I don't want to tie up the show with it, but thank you guys for asking and your concern. We're getting answers, and everything's going to be good, man. We're all good. So I appreciate y'all asking for sure. Some people don't even know what they're talking about. They're going to go, oh, what happened? Clayton, get his ass kicked out there in the street in Tennessee somewhere or something. What happened? But now we're good. Everything's good. So let's see here. I did a series of tweets earlier this morning. I don't mean to laugh, but Tim was in the room here in the virtual whatever studio as I came up with this idea, and he went, oh, Clayton. He was like, I know how this is going to go. He knew I was going to get raked over the coals because I was setting some people up. So I'm going to try to show you guys the origin of this, okay? If you'll remember yesterday, we put out a poll question that said, would you trade this year's second-round pick and next year's third-round pick for Max Crosby? And it was unanimous. Everybody said, absolutely, yes. All right, so cool. And this was on Twitter, of course. So today I told Tim I was going to do this. And again, Tim was just like, he could see this train was going to wreck. And I'm steering it, and I'm like, hey,
I'm glad I got the first comment in, though.
Right, exactly. Exactly. So here's what I asked. 2 more poll questions. I said, would you trade Jaden Reed and Tucker Kraft for Max Crosby? Well, it's totally flipped. It's a 90.4% no. All right. So, all right, got it. So I said, that's a little unfair to just take one year of second and third rounder and go, hey, would you trade these guys? Right. So I went on a little bit deeper here, and I said, would you trade Edgerrin Cooper and Marshawn Lloyd for Max Crosby? 88.4% said no. So it was completely flipped. And of course, I grouped them together because I'm getting roasted like we knew it would happen. I said only 15 hours apart. That energy changed real quick. The point is, if you're willing to trade a second and third round pick for Crosby, you're willing to trade 2 of these most recent second and third round picks for him. Jaden Reed was a second rounder. Tucker Kraft was a third rounder. Edgerrin Cooper was a second rounder. Marshawn Lloyd is a third rounder. And again, it's not to say you guys are wrong for voting that way. It's just to put it into perspective, because as fans, we look at draft picks like they're unproven. It could be a complete bust. That's true. But you've got to use the information at hand. What were the most recent value you got at those picks to determine, is it truly worth it? What's crazy is I got roasted because they think I'm saying trade Jaden Reed and trade Tucker Kraft for Max Crosby. And you guys know I said no to the second and third round pick going to it. Right? So I want to get your all's thoughts on that. It's not surprising, the results, but again, Tim seen my eyes light up when I said, I think I'm going to do this. I'm going to put this tweet out. So,
I mean, that's the whole point of the exercise, right? It's not about the specific players. It's like you never know who those draft picks are going to be, and are you willing to auction off, future draft capital, future franchise capital for, I mean, let's be honest, Crosby's a proven asset in the NFL, right? We're not talking about a bad player here. But, when you look down the road 2 or 3 years from now, where is that guy going to be, and versus where your draft picks could be? I mean, I think we'd all agree, man, we're not giving up Edge Coop for nothing right now. So, hindsight's always 20/20, but I think that was the whole point of the exercise is, take the names away and just look at the draft picks and the draft capital. I just don't think it's worth it.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, Tim. I mean, it's just because we want that instant gratification, I think, is what it is. Like, let's get an absolute star in here and we're good to go. But what are we losing? What do you have to give up? Nothing is free in the world. So we got to figure, you got to figure it out. There's always going to be a little give and take. And we pushed back on those picks last year and the year before. And then if you pushed it back one more year, your second and third round pick would be Christian and Sean Ryan.
Yep.
Right.
I mean,
and some would probably, I think that would probably be closer to 60 or 70% on
right. Yep. But exactly. But 2 out of 3 years rolling into this next year, on a roll. I mean, you're really kind of playing with fire, I think.
Yeah. And some of the comments said, would you trade? Okay, yeah, I'd trade Josh Myers and Jay Sternberger. And I went, okay, boys, we went back 6 yeurs. Think about this. And the whole point is, yes, we don't know if those draft picks are going to be hits. But what you're using, they said I was cherry picking the players. I'm going, no, you're cherry picking going back 5 or 6 years to go, see, this would have worked out. And that's just, we would have missed on those players if we had done this type of trade last year. Yeah, you would have gotten someone like a Max Crosby. And again, if you're okay with that, I'm not saying you're wrong and I'm right. I'm just simply saying that's the real conversation we're having.
It's just different philosophy, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I mean, Crosby could come here and ball out for 2 years and then he's gone. Then what?
Exactly. And let's go to the chat real quick. I want to see what everybody's saying. Josh Martin said, well, you're comparing, let me get Emilio back on the screen here. Well, you're comparing trading a second and a third unknown players for known players. Yes, I'll trade a second and a third pick, unknown players for a known elite edge. Right. But again, these are the players, the type of players you're landing with those picks. We can't just ignore. I'm not going to – you can do whatever you want. Everybody can do whatever you want. I'm not telling anybody how to think here. I'm saying this is how my mind looks at it, is like if we would have pulled a trigger on a trade like this last year, we would have missed out on Edgerrin Cooper, right, and who we say Marshawn Lloyd this year, right? If we'd done it the year before, we would have missed out on Jaden Reed and Tucker Kraft.
Or Luke.
In terms of this year's draft, we just – spent time, kind of looking at the board. A lot of the value is in the second and third round. We talked about this possibly trading back and getting more value in those second, third, and fourth round picks. I mean, if you give that up, where does that leave us?
You know who else was a second round pick? Elton Jenkins.
See, that's another one that came to mind, but I didn't want to be the hypocrite that goes back 8 years or whatever it was, right? Because it's a little strange to go back that far and go, well, this would have worked. Yeah, you're right.
And then you're just going to chase it, down a rabbit hole forever. It's just you were just trying to bring to light the point.
Right, exactly. Or the point to lie, right? Milltown Corey, you're not always guaranteed to get good draft picks, though, Clayton. Again, no one's saying that, Corey. No one's saying you're guaranteed to get the draft picks, right? Yeah. Now
you're guaranteed to get nothing if you trade them away.
Right, and let me flip it on you. You're guaranteed to miss out on Cooper Kupp, or I'm sorry, not Cooper Kupp, but Edgerrin Cooper, right? If we had pulled this trade last year, we're guaranteed to have missed out on Edgerrin Cooper. And I don't think anybody would say, yeah, we'll give up Edgerrin Cooper for Max Crosby. At least I'm not on that train, right? It says because some of Goody's older second and third round picks weren't so good, right? Older. And again, someone mentions right here, I think this is a great point. Brambo says, okay, then trade the first for Crosby.
That makes more sense.
It does.
Straight up. Let's go. First round pick. Bring Max here. Let's go.
Because the recency bias in all of us as fans, myself included, is, okay, would you trade LVM for Max Crosby? Hell yeah. And look, I like LVM. I think he's going to be a good player.
Right.
But let's be real here. Max Crosby, at this point in his career, is a much better edge defender than that. Now, what's really funny is if you peel it back another layer, the Raiders fans jumped into that conversation. They were like, you're absolutely crazy if you think we're giving up Max Crosby for a second and third. It's going to take multiple firsts. And now I'm like, boy, I don't have time to have this conversation. Right? It goes multi-layered. But I love those exercises because it tests my philosophy on how I see we should build a football team, right? And then you guys know if you watch this show, and it's a boring way of fanning, but it's what I do. I love to go off precedent. Like, what have we done in the past to determine, is this a realistic option? Not that anything just can't happen, but is this realistic? That's why the whole Khalil Mack thing, you guys are seeing me press into it a little bit because I'm going, you know what? There's a little bit of precedent that back to Ted Thompson when he jumped in and signed Julius Peppers, an aging edge defender, but go, damn, he's still talented. That gets leadership on our team at a key position, and he can still get the job done. That's maybe worth the risk of, oh, crap, he hit the wall this year. Now we got to cut him after 1 year, So it's just important to not get stuck in your own way of thinking of like, nope, this is the way it is, and that's just wrong. And when I hear things like, well, they're not proven talents, of course they're not. But when you say over the last 2 years you wouldn't have made that trade in hindsight, and there were some people that said, yeah, I think that trade. They were in the comments, right? And yep. I disagree with them, but it doesn't mean I'm right. It could end up being the difference in winning the whole damn thing, right? So I see Milltown Corey says Crosby is damn near a guaranteed Hall of Famer, though he is. Now, here's the other thing, Milltown Corey. Think about the injury this year, right? That comes into play too. Yep. What if you pull that trigger, make that trade, and you miss out on a potential Edgerrin Cooper, a potential Jaden Reed, a potential Tucker Kraft, and then he plays 3 games next year and misses, right? Now how do you look at it, right? That's the price you pay to
or even like I said, even if he plays lights out for a year or two, then he's gone, or we gotta try and figure out how to rework the deal and keep him here through retirement or whatever. Like you don't want to auction off your future, man. I get it. It's not for long, right? NFL, try and win now. I get it, but I don't know, man. It seems like a lot of future capital to auction off for a guy.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. Rambo says, would you trade Jordan Morgan for Crosby? I think I would.
I don't think the Raiders
would. Would you say?
I said I don't think the Raiders would, but
no, absolutely not. And that's where that conversation kind of steers in a whole different direction there. I mean, you guys, am I wrong? Would you guys trade Jordan Morgan for Crosby?
You would, but there's no way you would just be able to trade Jordan Morgan for Max Crosby. Right.
And I think what Brambo's saying is if we upped it from a second and a third to a first, that would kind of be the closest comp, right? Is you would have been trading Jordan Morgan.
Right, exactly. Yep.
And then it's one step forward, one step back, right? Because then now your O-line gets you lose a little depth on your O-line in the future, and then, okay, defensive front looks better at edge, but for how long?
Right. And that's why I'm team trade back. Like, get out of the first, get a bunch of these picks gathered up, second, third, fourth, where Goody has just absolutely annihilated the draft. And it takes you out of that mindset of we've got to draft a physical freak in the first round, right? Because of the potential upside. And you're just kind of going more off of, hey, you got this group of players that are kind of grouped together. And here's the other thing. I think it's a real issue that a first-round pick kind of feels like think of LVN, and I'm not saying he's resting on his laurels. I think LVN had a better year this year than most people give him credit for, and I think he's going to improve next year. That's my opinion, just based off what we've seen on the tape. But if you look at it from a standpoint of he got drafted number 13, do you think he's coming in with a chip on his shoulder? He ain't, right? A player that thinks he's going in the first and drops to the second or third, they're coming in pissed off. You're going to get the better.
Yep.
Right? So it's human nature. So again, I want to have these type of conversations in the off season because it's important to kind of look at these topics from all different angles. And I know there's going to be people that are rude in the comments. That's why Tim was going, Clayton, don't do this. It's going to happen, right? And you gotta let people show you who they are, block them, and move on, right? If you don't want to have a conversation because we disagree, even though we didn't even disagree, that's what's hilarious about it. Then probably not a good follow for either of us. So I thought it was cool, good little conversation. Any other thoughts on that? I'm about burned out on talking potential trades, to be honest with you. The only other one I will mention that people did mention in the comments was trade Jair straight up for Max Crosby. Again, I don't think the Raiders do that trade.
I don't either.
But if they would, yeah, give it to me, right? So you guys agree with that? You would trade Josh straight up for Max?
I would if they were going to entertain it. They probably want Jai and a pick, you know.
If it was straight up, if it was just, player for player, I probably would pull that trigger, yeah.
Got it. Good stuff. All right, let's keep it moving here. Jake Shavik in the house, good to see you, man. He says, a good point, Clayton, which is why the interview process also matters with these guys too, and we unfortunately don't have them. Yeah, see, that's the big thing is we don't get that information. That's the big miss that we get is we'll call ourselves like Michael Lombardi called himself growing up a draft Nick, right? These guys trying to figure out the NFL draft every year. That's the most important aspect. Like I was reading the thing on Chevelle Martin, right? Cornerback, ECU.
East Carolina, yep.
He's going to be I think it's the East-West Shrine game, right? He's going to be there, but he's not playing and he's not even practicing. But it's going to give those team scouts access to him, right? And that's absolutely huge. So he's actually listed as one of the most important prospects at the East-West Shrine game. I believe it was the East-West Shrine game he's at. And 33rd team mentioned him as the top most important prospect. And the reason they listed it that way was, hey, it's an opportunity for these GMs and these scouts to kind of get an idea of who this player is, even though he's not performing there. So Jake, you're obviously spot on with that, man. That's it's such an important aspect, and it's why people like Jaden Reed sneak up on us because he obviously killed the interviews and then had a faster 40 time. He didn't leak that out. You know, he could have leaked that out and be like, hey, with the Packers, I ran this fast. We didn't find out till after they drafted him. Like, the Packers had a quicker 40 time. You think the Packers weren't making a mental note of that as well? Like this dude didn't go out there and try to brag and say, hey, my 40 times quicker, right? So that's another thing I think that carries a lot of weight.
And it was East-West Shrine, Clay. I did just double check.
Perfect. Appreciate it.
Put it on the board too. Don't worry.
Here's one of the comments.
Getting it updated as we go.
Good deal, man. Here was one. I love it. Emilio's in the draft board right now, adding information while we're doing a live show. It's just absolutely awesome. Technology, man. This was one of the responses. It says, "Ever heard of a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush?" And I said, "This is a family program." Anyway, let's see. Y'all trade. Oh yeah, this was another funny comment. Somebody responded with this. And I had to quote tweet. He said, "We trade Reed. Y'all trade me as well." I'm on board with that mindset too.
He was love to read. That's awesome.
Yeah, love to read. Let's see what else we had here. Some other news that broke, and it sounds like we have news break in here. I think I've seen Jake and a couple other people in the chat put it in. Al Harris is going to Chicago. Not as the is he at? I don't think he's as a D. Maybe he is the DC. We'll check it here in a minute.
Passing game coordinator.
Passing game coordinator. Gotcha. So second in command, probably behind the defensive coordinator, right? Yep. So some other news that broke though. Pete Carroll, Emilio. People love to make fun of Michael Lombardi. He's a big doofus. He's brash. This and that, right? He said this last week. He said, I mean, it was on the McAfee show earlier this week. He said, "Look for Pete Carroll with the Raiders." And I went. I was over here working on something on the show, and I looked at the screen and was like, "I haven't heard that yet." Bang! Here it is.
That snap.
Yeah.
He said, I heard a little birdie told me. Yeah, that's crazy, though. I mean, good.
And then 5 minutes after this broke, we got Russell Wilson is the answer for the Raiders at quarterback.
Right.
They didn't wait long.
So Adam Schefter reports just then Pete Carroll and the Raiders now have reached agreement on a 3-year deal with a 4th-year team option. Sources tell ESPN another veteran legendary coach has returned. I think this could be a good move. Get a guy who's won a Super Bowl, right, in there and kind of implement a culture with the Raiders. Mm-hmm. And the reason Lombardi thought this was going to happen, he specified on that McAfee interview, he said Tom Brady is involved with the process. He's looking for people like this while other people are trying to find the next young, flashy play caller. They understand a play calling coach isn't going to come in there and turn that thing around. You've got a culture problem. Right. And it's mainly because Bookpack, what's his name? Al Davis's boy. We need to get that picture back. Remember the dude that wears the backpack everywhere? What's his name? Al Davis's son. God, what's his name? His name is taking me. I can see his bowl haircut right now. Anyway, that birth control haircut.
The old self haircut.
Yeah,
exactly. Anyway, step aside, let Pete Carroll and whoever take over, get football people in place. There it is, Mark Davis. Thank you for that, Brambo. Reestablish the culture, and then, like it said, 3-year deal with a 4th-year team option. If you get a little culture established, and then you want to step into another, whether it's a coordinator in house, let them take over after 3 years because Pete Carroll is getting older. I kind of like the move. I think it's a safe move. You know what I mean? It's kind of a safe move.
He brings that energy. He's going to bring that fire. I mean, he still had energy going up and down the sideline when he left. I mean, it's not like in that itch, I'm sure it doesn't leave. You saw Bill come back into it. Pete's coming back. Why would you not want somebody with that kind of knowledge and energy? Like you said, you always forget about Tom Brady in the background there, kind of throwing in 25 cents, not 2. I mean, that dude's putting in input, I'm sure, across the board.
Yeah, definitely. Tim, anything else to add to old Pete Carroll here, man? The ageless wonder. He's 73. Like Respect Orange just says, looks good at 73. I completely agree. They say he's still in the building shooting basketball and everything when he was with Seattle. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I barely got out of bed this morning at 42. You know what I mean?
Doing a lot of the throwing drills too with the players too. You see them out there on the field just tossing the ball around.
Right.
Honestly, I think this is what the Raiders tried years ago when they brought Gruden back. They had that whole debacle with John Gruden and they ousted him basically, but they were looking for an established veteran coach to reset the culture. Mm-hmm. And ever since that debacle, it's been, all hell has broken loose in that organization. So I think Brady's probably onto something if this was him pushing for this hire, because now at the very least, the Raiders have a stable veteran head coach. And for a fact that team's going to compete next year, just based on the fact that Pete Carroll's going to have those guys ready to play. You can say what you want about him. He's a hell of a coach. He'll go down as one of the all-time greats, both in the college game and in the pro game. And you have to respect that. And I think that sets the tone. Young player, old player, veteran, everything in between, it doesn't matter. You got to change the culture if you want to get guys, focused on winning. And I think it starts from the top, right? An organization's only as good as its leadership.
Yep. Yeah, and obviously Spytek got hired to be the general manager there. Now, we had some other news that broke. I'm going to try to get it on the screen here. I'm trying to find this. Yeah, here it is. Al Harris has agreed to terms with the Bears to join incoming head coach Ben Johnson as the team's passing game coordinator 2025. So that was from Patrick Walker, voice of the Star, looks like who's reporting it there. So I'm assuming that's legit. I guess it is. But let's see. Let me get back, drop this down, make sure we don't get any copyright stuff. The other thing I was going to mention, since we were talking coaches, if I can get to it, where's it at? I know I posted it here. Anyway, Antoine Randall was the big one I wanted to talk about too. The Bears are working to finalize a deal to make former Lions wide receiver Antoine Randall their new assistant head coach, wide receiver coach, per source. Okay, so he's not the OC. I thought he was going to be the OC. So he's going to be the wide receiver coach, right? But he's going to be the assistant head coach. We talked about that's a technical promotion, right? So that's interesting. What do you guys think about that? We talked about how Antoine Randall might be next in line, right? For OC. I didn't tweet it wrong. I was ignorant when I tweeted it, but I didn't put in there that he's going to be the OC in Chicago. So we're good. We don't have to that tweet. What do you guys think about that, man? Antoine Randall, the Lions are getting picked apart, boys.
Yeah, that's what Josh Martin was saying there. Antoine Randall leaving Detroit to Bears, become Bears assistant. Lions lose another, fans meltdown. I mean, that's just absolutely perfect. Anything you can ask for. There was another one I saw. It was like it was a Bears fan talking about how every team's okay, and then how much he just hates the Lions. So it's it works out for both squads. Congrats to Antoine Randall, but like you said, thinking that he would have got that OC shot. Assistant head coach, I guess, looks better, but who's going to be the OC for the Bears is that kind of next question. Where's he going to plug from next?
Well, we all know who's calling the plays, though.
Get ready to go.
You got that right.
And I wonder if they had conversations, right? Ben Johnson probably was on the text thread with Antoine Randall and, hey, you want to come over to Chicago with me? You know how this goes in this league, coaching circles. Clearly he likes what he sees down there with Ben Johnson, so he's following suit. I don't know what that means for the balance of power in the North, but if Detroit takes a step back because of this, I'm all for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So some other news that kind of broke it. It's not huge news because we kind of expected it, right? Luke Getsy is expected to land back on the Packers coaching staff in some capacity, but perhaps there's room for Slolik too, as LaFleur looks to replace retiring quarterback coach Tom Clement. So earlier, Rob Demovsky had tweeted out, Green Bay native is out in Houston, wrote about him and his dad, a former Packers assistant coach earlier this season. Also, he overlapped with Packers coach Matt LaFleur in Washington. So it says a Houston shakeup. Bobby Slowick is out as the Texans offensive coordinator per sources. In a span of 1 year, Slowick went from being a hot head coaching candidate to now looking for work. And this is one of the reasons why Lions fans do not need to be roasting Ben Johnson, even though he is one of the oddest human beings I've ever heard speak behind a microphone. But if something goes wrong with that offense, you can go from being, hey, this is the next great head coach in the league, to not even getting a job offer. And that's what happened with Slowick. He's actually out of a job. Last year, people were talking like, wow, look at this Houston offense. You know what I'm saying, Emilio? It's like all it takes is 1 year and things have changed. So I understand why Ben Johnson said, I'm not waiting. I'm getting out of here. 10,
right.
13 years.
I mean, and he already had wrote it out one more year this year. Honestly, like weren't they talking about it last year almost that he was going to be kind of that next head coach in line, and it didn't happen. Then you get one more year, you lose it in the end. And yeah, like you said, it's crazy how fast you can just lose one year. It's either you want them to stay there for a couple of years, get a baseline, get going, or it's one and done, get out of here. You didn't get enough production. But again, just wanting that immediate change.
Yeah, for sure. Fred McFarley says, breaking, Bears just hired Lions assistant quarterback coach as their quarterback coach. So this is the whole point of talking about this, Tim. Our boy Matt LaFleur, he gets criticized a lot. I feel like he does. He's never in the running for coach of the year, right? He's always got a top 10 offense. He's got one of the highest winning percentage in the history of the NFL, right? To me, he checks all the boxes. We just got to get over the hump. And I don't think you're going to get over that hump until you stop being the youngest team in the league. That's just me personally. You need some veteran leadership in here. But when you look at what's going on here with Dan Campbell's about to see what it's like to be Matt LaFleur, because Matt LaFleur had to rebuild this coaching staff over and over and over, and he continued to win while he done it, with the exception of 2022, right?
Yep,
so
right.
Does that make sense, Tim? I mean, that's something that we're going to see if it's Dan Campbell or if he's just made some good hires in the past and maybe the wells run dry, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. It's kind of like Emilio was saying, gone are the days of like building your staff and these guys hang around for 8, 9, 10 years and, you try and go on a dynasty run with your coaching staff. I mean, this turnover in the NFL is normal. Every year you're going to see movement. What's interesting in this offseason is just the movement within the division, between Detroit and Chicago, even Minnesota for that factor, the changes that are happening. You look at the Packers, clearly we're looking to make some hires and some adjustments too. But I think Matt has done a good job of dealing with that. This is the new era of the NFL, and your staff may not be the same year to year. You have to find a way to be consistent and find ways to get the best out of your players and win ball games. And I think to Matt's credit, he's done as good a job as you could expect someone to do. I mean, Clayton, you're a business owner. Emilio, you're a business owner. If you had to have new employees every year, or or a new
Brutal. Got to train them.
Every year you need a new client, different client. You can't count on anyone staying with. I mean, that's hard to be successful without consistency in your personnel. So I think it is, Clayton. That's a great point. It's a credit to good old Tupac LaFleur for keeping a gangster throughout all the turnover in this league, man.
I just so heard Ice Cube's voice. Keep it gangster, y'all. Keep it
gangster.
So anyway, we're going back a little bit there for sure. So anything else you guys want to hit on here with the Bobby Slolik and obviously the Luke Getsy? And I know there's some fans that don't like Luke Getsy. It's amazing the Bears are laughing at it, going, "You bring in Luke Getsy, he was horrible." It's like, everybody's horrible with you, bub. He did fine up here. He was quarterback coach, and Aaron Rodgers won a couple MVPs, right? If I remember correctly, at least one of them under him. So let's stop pretending like you guys aren't the ones running these coaches. So
yep.
It is what it is. All right, let me see. Let me get this on the screen. I want to hit on something. A good listener, a loyal listener of the show, been a big supporter of us. We want to give him a shout out here. He had this tweet. I don't think we've hit this yet. You guys correct me if I'm wrong, but our Aaron Rodgers, not the Aaron Rodgers, put this out and said, "My off-season plan." We haven't hit this, have we, guys?
No.
Okay, cool. I thought this was interesting. I'm not saying I agree with all of it, but let's walk through it. I think he's got a detailed plan, and I love having these conversations because you can tell someone actually thought it through rather than just go, "Oh, he's a bum. Get him out of here." You know what I mean? Yes. So my off-season plan, this is at AMRogers98 on X. Go give him a follow. My off-season plan: sign cornerback DJ Reed, linebacker Dre Greenlaw, Devontae Adams if he's released, and Khalil Mack. Then draft a nickel corner, 2 more corners, a wide receiver, 2 interior offensive line, and 2 interior defensive line. Now, you notice he didn't say with the first pick, take this, the second.
Yeah, no particular order.
Best available, right?
Yep.
I like this game plan. I don't see a whole lot wrong with it. He's got some pictures we'll click on in a second. I just want to get your all's take on the skeleton, the structure of this game plan right here. What do you guys think about that?
That's an aggressive plan there in free agency. I like it. I think I'd be fine with almost half of it. I'm still on the Devontae Adams, Khalil Mack train, but I don't mind the Dre Greenlaw sign if he comes back from that ankle in good shape. And DJ Reed wouldn't be terrible either. So I'm not mad at that, but I'd probably cut it in half. And for the draft, I really like it. Maybe a little bit, you're kind of spreading it out. It's kind of hard to find just a specific nickel corner. So 3 corners might be a little tough. But I'm not mad at it. We definitely want to bolster the line. We need a couple shots at it.
I agree with that. I think 2 corners and a safety that can play the slot, play in the nickel. We see that in the draft. There's a handful of safeties out there that can play down in the nickel. So I think that's a great game plan. But I'm with you, man. It's Tay and Khalil Mack at the top of the wish list for free agents. If in fact Tay does get released, time will tell. But I'm with Aaron on this one, man. This looks good. It's like Emilio said, a little adventurous, a little aggressive, but that's what you got to do sometimes in this league, man. You got to go out there and get your guys,
And here's the other thing, like there's going to be some people that respond to this and go, "We don't have enough cap for that." So as it sits right now, you've really got about 25 to 30 million in cap. That's after the, accounting for some operating money, 5 to 7 million, and after the current draft class as it sits right now, as those cap hits are pretty much slotted in, right? On top of that, so let's say you got 30 million, right? Let's call it 25 million for easy math. With restructure possibilities, you got anywhere from 32 million to 64 million there. Okay. So keep that in mind. That's with those restructures. So here's what I'm talking about. Rashawn Gary, somewhere between 7 to 15 million you can get out of restructuring his contract, right? Jair Alexander, 8 to 16, although we talked about post-June 1, you can free up like 17 million, okay, if you wanted to just cut him outright. Jordan Love, 5 to 11 million roughly. Elton Jenkins, 5 to 11 million. Xavier McKinney, 5 to 11. Kenny Clark, 3 to 7. And Josh Jacobs, 2 to 5. So you're looking, you can free up another 40 million like that if you wanted to. I'm not saying they should, but you tack that on with the current operating money that you have, you could go in there with some restructure and go, okay, and you just have to allocate it. You know, that's just what you got to allocate to this year. You can structure these to where, like they did with Xavier McKinney, like they did with Josh Jacobs, where it's a lot cap hit early, and then later on down the road, obviously it picks up. So like a DJ Reed, if you got him for $10 million per, and I'm not saying you should, I'm just throwing numbers out. That's $10 million per. Let's say Dre Green lost $10 million per on average. Devontae Adams, let's say you got that 30 down to 15, right? You're now at what, 35 million? And then Khalil Mack, let's say he says, no, I want 20 million per. That's 55 million right there, right? Yeah. And again, that doesn't mean that it's going to be front loaded to where the biggest cap hits on the front side. You've got a little bit of maneuverability with the way the rest of these restructure possibilities sit. This is possible. The question is, would it get you over the hump? You know, I'm not as big on DJ Reed as someone like Emilio and other people. I know that's kind of your guy, Emilio. You feel like
Khalil. No, Khalil's my guy.
Okay, gotcha. So I'm just saying DJ Reed from a cornerback standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. He's not a bad cornerback, but I'm saying I wouldn't. He's not the free agent. I would pull the trigger on.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. I misunderstood you there then. So yeah, with Khalil Mack, and let's say you go and get a corner similar to DJ Reed, man, if Jair isn't here, that makes that a little more palatable on the outside. Khalil Mack gives you another effective pass rusher opposite of Rashawn Gary. LVN imagine that rotation now. Holy cow, right?
I always land back on like the fact that I feel like the offense fell short when we were in these, you know, the games, right? I mean, our defense didn't do terrible. I would love Khalil Mack, but I'm saying I feel like we need just a little spark on that O. That's where I feel like the Tay or a veteran receiver, DK. I know other people talk like all those options. That may be a little bit more of what I'm leaning. You know, because I'm not mad at how the defense played going into the end of the year.
Right. And Brambo mentions the cap's going up 20 million more. We don't know the exact number yet, but keep in mind these numbers have what they're projecting it to go up already figured in. Okay. So it's not like there's going to be another 20 million. All that's already kind of accounted for through Spot Track. So there's that. Tim, anything else you want to add to this? Obviously, that interior defensive line is my big thing there. You're probably going to want to try to make that work in the first and second round to get at least one guy in those first two rounds to try to shore up that interior defensive line. I love that people are finally coming around on TJ Slayton now, too. We talked about it, was it 3-4 weeks ago? And we were hitting on TJ Slayton going, man, this dude's got a better quarterback pressure rate than Kenny Clark. He's got a way higher run stop rate than Kenny Clark, and they both played predominantly one tech all year long. We showed the tape the other night. Tim, I'm okay with this, man. I'm on board with it.
Yeah, me too. And I'm with you on the interior, you know, D-line and O-line for that matter. You know, we got to get, you know, bigger and better and faster and stronger and younger and in the trenches. I mean, that's what we got to do. And, you know, that's why my first reaction to Aaron's tweet here was like, oh, I'd put interior D-line and O-line at the top of the list. And then it's like, well, you realize this is not in any order. This is just ideas that he's coming up with in the draft.
That's right.
So, I mean, really, there's nothing to disagree with here. I think he's spot on. I mean, we can take our picks with the free agent acquisitions, you know, we all have our favorites, but I agree, man, that interior D-line's got to improve. And I think you go to the draft, but you also need to make sure you keep TJ Slayton in Green Bay, at least for another couple years.
Yeah, definitely. All right. That's going to do it for hour one. For those of you listening on the pod, we'll see you on the other side for hour two. We appreciate y'all.